Did you know that we could create an anonymous function? Check out this video after watching this one. Hello everyone, welcome to TechScent, and let's continue with this Python tutorial. In Python, we have three errors. Compile time error, meaning let's say you forgot a colon after the if statement. It is a syntax error, so you'll get an error at compile time. Logical error, let's say you print 1 plus 1, instead of getting 2, you got 4, and that is a logical error. Runtime error, let's say everything is working with your code, but it came to a statement where you are trying to divide a number by 0, and that is impossible. So your code got compiled, but in a certain moment, a statement evaluated an error. So as a programmer, you need to take care of the errors to not stop the execution of your code. So let's say I'll ask my user to input an integer. So I'll tell him, enter a number. Then I'll simply just print the number. So print Z. And then let me run my program. I'll input the number 12. And okay, everything's working. But let's say the user enters a string instead of a number. You see, we'll get a value error. It says invalid literal for integer with base 10. That means I wanted the user to input an integer, but instead the user gave me a string. But let's say you have thousands of lines of code. Why you want to stop the execution of your code just for a simple mistake like this? So that's where we use try and except block. So I'll indent my code and then write above try. What try means is that you're telling Python you're not sure of your code right here, so let's try it out. Python will try it out, and if Python finds an error, you'll say to Python, I'll accept that exception, and I'll mention a nickname for the exception, so I'll say as E, then I'll print the exception. So let's see, I will input a string instead of a number. As you can see, we got the same error, but this time the font color is white instead of red. Why? Because we told Python that we will accept the exception and then just print the exception on the console. Of course, instead of the print statement, you can write whatever you want. Let's say invalid input, and so let me just give a string instead of a number. We got invalid input. Let's say I try to divide a number by 0. Definitely this is impossible, so that's why we will get an error. So I'll say to Python, I'll receive this error by accepting the exception and give it a nickname, so I'll print the exception. And then let us see what we will get. Division by 0. Definitely in Python or in math in general, we cannot divide a number by 0. So I told Python, try out this print statement, and if you found an error, I'll accept the error and I'll print it out on the console. So with the try and except block, we definitely don't stop the execution or the flow of our code. Now let me show you a small example. Let's write a code where the user should guess the number 12 in 5 rounds. So we will use a while loop, and definitely we need a counter. So I'll say counter equal to 5, and then I'll say while counter is different than 0. So if counter became 0, I'll stop the program. I'll use the try and except block. And maybe the user, instead of giving us a number, it gives us a string. So I'll say guess, and then I'll use an if statement. So if z equal to 12, print win, so the user guessed the number. Then I'll say break, that means I'll break out of the loop. Then I'll say else, that means if z is not equal to 12, I'll say print wrong, and then I'll just decrement my counter. So counter minus equal to 1. But let's say the user gives us a string. I'll accept the exception, and I'll write exception as E. And then I'll print the user the exception, so E, and then print another message, please input a number. And then I'll decrement my counter. Counter minus equal to 1. So let's launch our program. So I'll guess, let's say 34, of course wrong. Let me just raise the window. And then I'll say 45, of course wrong. Let me give a string. As you can see, my program didn't terminate. It continues, so if I guess 12, okay, I won. But when I gave a string, it gives me the error, so invalid literal for integer with base 10. Then I print this message for the user to understand, please input a number. So like this, the user knows that next time the input should be a number. Definitely, when you work on complex projects, you will do better than that. But that's a simple example to explain to you how the try and except block allows you to not terminate your code, but keep on moving with the flow. With the try and except block comes the finally block. So finally actually means no matter what, if there's an error or not, it will execute the following code or the block of code that comes after. So let's say I will print by, let's say, and we know that there's an exception or there's an error because we cannot divide a number by 0. Finally, no matter what will be printed. Did you know that we could specify the name of the exception? So in my case, it is a 0 division error. So instead of as, I could just say Z, let's say. It's the nickname, and then I'll print Z. So division by 0. But let's say you had another statement where you wanted the user to input a number, but instead the user inputs a string. How will you handle this error if you guided Python to only handle the 0 division error? Well, we could use another except block, and this time this except block will be the mother except block. So I'll say exception as E, and then I'll print the exception. So if I, let's say, delete this one, and then let us see, I'll input a string. So we got the invalid literal for integer with base 10 because we entered a string instead of a number. So as a programmer, you need to handle the errors. And you need to know what errors the user might give that will terminate your program. And that's it on exception handling in Python. Thank you so much for watching today's video. This is TechSent, and I'll see you in the next one.